Okay, so hi everyone and welcome to our seminar on the ins and outs of ADUs. Thank you for joining us, and please bear with us as this is our first webinar. If you have any questions, I have muted everybody, but if you can go ahead and type into the chat bar, I will check on that as we go, and hopefully it will be smooth running from here. So just a brief introduction, and I'd like to really try to do my part as little as possible so that we can get to the heart of what we're talking about tonight. But just a brief introduction to our company. It is Perisson, like Harrison, and the name Perisson comes from the Greek word for abundance and overflow. And so our company's vision is based upon this principle of abundance, and we really want to be able to serve our clients so they can thrive and experience abundance in their real estate lives. We did start in 2016, and our associates have over 80 years of collective real estate experience. And we're really hoping to provide value for our community. So we've been doing seminars for the past 3 years, and this is our very first webinar that we're trying out, and I hope all of you are still with me, but hope to be able to continue to do this and get better at it as we go along. I'm just going to launch into a very quick as I can, a real estate market update to let you know where things are at. And this is going to look a little different than what you may have seen if you come to our seminars in the past. For this, I decided I'm going to be borrowing a bunch of slides from the webinar that was given yesterday, talking about the coronavirus impacts on the housing market. And this was given by Oscar Way, who is our senior economist and director of research of the California Association of Realtors. So he talked about several things. I'm not going to go into everything because I wanted to keep this to my portion to only 10 minutes. The first thing that he talked about was obviously economic impact. So as you all know, stock markets have tumbled since the outbreak. So this is showing, we see here from January 1st all the way through March 27th. And so definitely everybody who's seen the news and follows the stock market is aware of this as it is. Oh, that was interesting. So the next slide is basically the unemployment claims. So as many of you know, we've had record spike in unemployment. So we were going around the 3.5 to 4 range, and then now we're at 3.28 million claims were made just in the past week. So market impact. Showing activity. So this is a slide that comes from a site called Showing Time. So showingtime.com. And basically what they do is they show the number of showings of houses. This is going from the beginning of January, first calendar week, and then all the way through to March 23rd. The black line here is the weekly average. So you see for 2019, how that would have normally progressed at this time of the year. So as usual, it would be quieter, January 1st or so. You wouldn't see that much in terms of showings, and then picking up and continuing along. And usually by March, April, that's when we would see a lot of our normal usual activity. 2020, obviously has changed drastically for us. This is I believe this is a California chart, but starting from March 9th, 10th, that week, then it fell precipitously in terms of number of showings, which also makes sense since we've had the shelter in place since March 17th. So there were some people who were still doing some amount of showings, private showings, even after that, but I think the bulk of it has gone away. Impact on sales. So the closed sales started declining in most regions after, let me try to move this, after the Bay Area shelter-in-place order. So this is all of California, because this is, the presentation is for our California Association of Realtors. And the darker blue line is showing the week of March 1st through 7th. The lighter blue is March 8th through 14th, and the light green is March 15th through 20th. So as of that time, for the Bay Area, we saw closed sales going from 101 starting to go up a little bit, and 108 in the middle of March, which makes sense because that's when, that means if it was a closed sale, that means it probably went on the market sometime in February and or even late January and received an offer. And then at the 15th through 20th, we saw 82 sales in the Bay Area. Southern California, because it is a bigger region, you do see bigger numbers, but also the same pattern, slightly increasing in the second week of March and then decreasing. In the Central Coast, interesting, it's kind of just been stayed about the same. It never hit, and I don't know Central Coast and Central Valley, I don't know very well, but Central Valley also does follow that same pattern. Impact on pending sales. So pending sales refer to listings that were put on the market and they had an accepted offer. So the number of pending sales did also decline in all regions as soon as the shelter in place took effect. So these first two bars here are the same dates that I mentioned before, and they reflect up to the 14th. So that green bar would show a lot of the impact of the shelter in place. So again, the Bay Area, we did see some amount of drop, and in Southern California as well. What's interesting to me is that we're actually still seeing new listings, we're seeing pending sales, we're seeing closed sales even now. So, and I did send out to all of our network, I do send out a weekly newsletter because I'm getting into the numbers of what are we actually seeing. And you know, some people would think, well, nobody would want to list their home, or nobody would want to buy a home at this time. And it's interesting because that's actually not the case. We are seeing, yes, we are seeing some slowing. We are seeing, you know, we cannot show houses. So there are a lot of things in terms of virtual tours and 3D tours, but there are buyers who are still very motivated. There are still sellers who need to sell. And so although albeit at a slower pace and probably going to be at a delayed pace compared to our usual spring market, people still want to buy and sell. There's a sharp decline in pending sales. So we are seeing, again, the decline in the pending sales, and that suggests double-digit drops in closed sales in the coming weeks. And again, the closed sales that we've had so far are more reflective of the houses that were already on the market before the shelter in place took effect. So we are seeing definitely a drop in the number of pending sales, and we will probably be seeing that reflected in a drop of closed sales in the coming weeks. Not a surprise. Impact on new listings. So as I mentioned, there's also a decline. So these bars are the same time period as I mentioned before, with these first week of March, second week of March, and then after the shelter in place, third week of March. So definitely we've been seeing the number of new listings starting to decline since early March. This is a time when we would normally expect it to be going the opposite trend. And so that definitely is a change from what we would normally expect. And then counties with shelter-in-place orders experienced a sharper decline in the latest week. And again, that's not surprising. So I won't go into a lot of detail on that, but I just thought it would be good to see the numbers here. So you see the counties with the shelter-in-place experienced a 42.8%, of almost a 50% decline in the number of pending sales, whereas the counties without a shelter-in-place, you know, this one didn't have anything. And then the Bay Area, we did again have a big drop. So this is all counties with the shelter in place. This is just the Bay Area, which did have a shelter in place. And then we see here all the counties without a shelter in place actually had less of a change happening. So impact to realtors. I just thought this would be interesting, even if whether you're not, most of you are not realtors on this webinar, but I thought it would be interesting to get a feel for what we're experiencing, what the realtors are experiencing. I have a lot of great contacts, some of you on this call who have been reaching out to me and asking me, you know, how are you doing? And I think it's interesting to see this statistic because, again, the same 3 time periods, the first week of March, when surveyed, because the California Association of Realtors sends out a survey every week to the realtors, or they have been recently. And the question for this one was, do you feel that coronavirus has or will have a negative impact on your personal real estate business? So as the beginning of March, the first week of March, that was only at like 53%. Now we're getting to the third week of March and it's at 96%. So that's pretty much a majority. I'm surprised that it's not higher than that, but there's some very optimistic people among us. 4 or 5, so in terms of experientially, again, now this time period is going for March 14th through 16th versus March 20th through 23rd. How the question here was, have you had any clients holding back from buying because of coronavirus? And 4 of 5 had clients who were holding back. So that is increasing, has increased over time. I'm going to skip through fairly quickly, but a third are seeing buyers withdraw their offers. So that question was, have you seen any buyers withdrawing? And yes, as of March 20th through 23rd, I am hearing anecdotally that that number is probably increasing a bit, because we are finding buyers who understandably are concerned, some who have lost jobs or are worried about their jobs, some who are looking at maybe helping family members financially, so and some who are just fearful because they're not sure what to expect. So we are seeing that, but it's still good that it's only a third at this point. We'll see where that goes as things progress. And then sellers beginning to remove homes from the market. So again, that same question, 31% as of March 20th through 23rd were beginning to remove their homes from the market. 30% weren't sure. So I think they were still in discussions. Some of the reasons for that are either sellers who don't need to sell right away and are afraid they're not going to get the best price or best exposure since we can't have open houses. And others have to do with maybe rental properties where tenants can't move out who were going to. And so the landlords who are being nice are trying to kind of make accommodations for them. So I've seen, those are the two main reasons that I've seen. The majority of any escrows that have fallen out as of March 20 through 23rd, it's not saying that 79% of escrows have fallen out. It's saying of those that have fallen out, the transactions that have not happened, 79% is because of coronavirus. I mean, sorry, because the buyer decided to back out. So outlook, I'll just go very quickly. This is, you've probably seen this metric. It's talking a lot about what we're expecting for California in terms of the pandemic. And if you follow this, you know, they talk about flattening the curve and all of that. So most charts are showing, the modeling is showing somewhere around late April or May, beginning of May, where we'll probably hit a peak and then come down. So that's where we're looking at probably June until we're out of the bulk of what we're, I think this will be an ongoing thing that we do have to deal with, but hopefully it will be a little more under control and yep, under control. I just thought this would be interesting because it shows the retail market dips during a crisis. And this is 2003. There was the SARS outbreak in China. And then so you see how the outbreak spreads. I was actually in China during this time, for those of you who are interested, and I came home. May is when of the economy, retail sales, year-over-year growth. So it hit a low in May. And then that was only about a couple months. It didn't spread as fast as people thought it would be. So there was a steady recovery and then a stabilization. Japan, 2011, the Fukushima disaster there, that was more like a natural disaster, very sudden, quick. So that all took place within that March. And then there was a very quick kind of recovery there as the panic subsided, and then market stabilization. The MERS outbreak in South Korea in 2015, this took place over a little longer period of time, from May through August. And then there was a rapid recovery, and then it kind of stabilized as the epidemic ends. I don't have a chart on this, but the economist Oscar Wei was mentioning that, you know, most people are expecting that because this is going to be a long haul, it's going to be longer, and the spread is more, because it is more widespread globally, that we're probably going to have probably a longer recovery period. And then this I just thought would be interesting because it shows the last 5 recessions in in our recent history, starting from 1971. And interestingly enough, whenever you see the recessions, you know, people have been talking about recessions and worried about whether some people are saying we already are in one. What we're seeing is that we're actually in 3 of the 5 recessions, we actually saw price growth increasing here at the end of that recession in 1974, the first one, not here, the second one, and the third one. And the only one where we had a really drastic drop was in 2008, 2009 period, which was different because that recession was caused by the housing market. So I'm running out of time. So uncertainty, we're not sure where things are going to go. I think, you know, we'll be continuing to monitor where, we'll continue to monitor the market, and I may be doing a webinar at a later date just talking about the market for those who are interested. I'm going to take it to ADUs. I'm not going to go much into it because I'd like to leave that for Spenser and Kamal, but basically ADU is the accessory dwelling unit, which refers to a secondary housing unit on a single family residential lot. There are many benefits of ADUs: more affordable housing stock, create less car-dependent housing, potential additional income for homeowners, and creating options for older owners. And I would just point out that especially with what's going on with coronavirus, it's interesting because I'm seeing more people, because we're, the way I say it is because we're at home more, we think about our homes more. And, you know, whether it be needing to have an additional living space for extended family, needing additional space for having a backyard and whatnot, that there's a lot more interest. So from here, I will stop from here, and then I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Spenser. So Spenser, you're there, right? Hello, Spenser?
Yes, I am here.
Hi. Okay.
So go ahead and pass me the presenter rights. Yes.
Yep. So I need to. How do I do this? I did it last time, but sorry. Can you?
I think if you just right click on my name and participants, you should be able to make me a presenter.
Got it. Here we go. I know I did it before, so there we go. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, well, very good. Thank you so much for the presentation, for the intro and the market update. It's the shelter in place in the Bay Area has affected the construction business as well. Actually, construction was deemed as an essential service up until yesterday. So at this point, even our crews came and go out to do any of our existing projects. But there are a lot of phases that I'll be going over today that would take months anyways before the construction period begins. So the goal of this presentation is to give you a little bit of a background about ADUs, why people are building out an in-law unit. There's kind of connotations about what an in-law unit is, and there's actually a lot more options than most people know. And then happy to answer any questions at the end. So we got a lot to cover because in-law units has been a very popular conversation, especially this year, where there were several bills passed from the state level, which ultimately will impact how the local governments decide and adopt those changes. So we'll go over a team introduction, a little bit about our services, the different options when it comes to building an in-law unit, and just certain things to be aware of and to plan for. So a little bit about us. Kamal is my partner. He is the general contractor. He'll be presenting at the later half of this meeting here. But we both came from a very different background. We both came from the tech industry. We felt this was a very interesting opportunity because it was quite scalable, since this is not like brand new construction that everything is very unique and different. So we saw a lot of aspects from a scale perspective. But we are also both homeowners, so we also saw this as an opportunity of leveraging the asset that we already have, which is, everybody knows, is generally the land that we're on. And so what are creative or interesting ways to do that? So we saw this several years back, formed a company, and we've been educating and building since. So a little bit about us. When we started seeing the landscape, we knew it was challenging for most people because number one, the reality is most people barely do any sort of remodels at home, never mind trying to build out this mini home in a person's backyard. And so we knew we wanted to be that that company that individuals would just come to so that we can help from the very beginning of just a thought, which is what this seminar, webinar is all about. And if they are so interested, then what is the actual process, right? How do you design the plans? How do you get permits? And then making sure that you are protected as you go through the construction phases. And so we are a one-stop shop when it comes to building out in-law units. And we have, because of our niche and because of our focus related to in-law units, we continue to rotate and gather additional partners that we know will do a good job. And those are the partnerships that you see on the bottom. Maximal is a great partner of ours. They do a lot of public works related to in-law units. So they work with a lot with the local governments. They hold very large events. So we're delighted to be a partner with them, to be one of their vendors. And then you can see all the other different key aspects that are critical for an individual that is looking to build out an in-law unit. This gives you a chart of just the number of permits that have been issued and have been given out just over the last 2 years. You can see in 2018, it'd be a pretty good month if you can get about 10 to 20 permits. But as you can see, as soon as things got a lot more popular, which a lot of cities started making things a lot easier towards the middle of last year. So San Jose, Oakland, they were always very aggressive when it came to creating housing, mainly because it's a combination of political, but it's also a combination of the mayor. And so they were really trying to drive the concept of in-law units. And so once it got passed from a Senate perspective, then things continued to accelerate. San Jose a little bit less so because they were already pretty ahead versus others, but most other cities have seen a substantial increase. However, at the same time, it's not as much as you may think, right? I mean, this is 50 permits a month. And San Jose, I mean, it's such a massive city. So the reality is, whether it's the education, which is not really out there, or just the concern that people are doing such a large project, is what I think has why you see the numbers at this figure. But I suspect the cities themselves are doing a lot more of educating the public. I know the cities are also doing their own seminars as well. And so, but I suspect this will continue to increase this year as more and more people know about the process and how it became easier. So there's ultimately 3 types of in-law units that not all people knew. Most people may know the bottom one, which is around detached in-law units. The idea about that is a separate structure that's built, next to your main dwelling. The trenching will be required for the utilities to come from the primary home. And it's basically building a mini home. You're going to have your kitchen, it's going to have its own bathrooms, and it's going to have the proper hookups. There are also 2 other versions that people are not accustomed to, and that are also good options. And from a price perspective, it's also substantially less because you're taking your existing framework and you're converting the space. So garage conversions happen quite a bit these days, especially if there's no parking requirements. A lot of individuals may not need either the parking space in the garage because they have a driveway, or there may be street parking. And so they would rather just use that space that was never considered as livable square footage to begin with and convert that into an in-law unit. And most garages, just by the nature of a 2-car garage, is a little over 400 square foot. So from a size and a studio perspective, it fits very well. Others are converting parts of their home. So I've seen examples, whether it's from a primary homeowner or from an investor, where they buy a large home, but they have the idea and design of converting the existing quarters. So a section of that primary home is now the junior in-law unit. So that's converting existing space and adding basically a kitchen if it doesn't already have a bathroom. And that is called a junior in-law unit. So these are the different types of in-law ADUs that are available today. And with the state changes, there was certain things that have made it substantially different than it was before. And that's what you'll see here. The biggest thing is related to how many in-law units you can actually have for a single family lot. In the past, you only had the choice between a garage conversion, a junior in-law unit, or a separate detached in-law unit. But with the state changes, now technically you can have 2 in-law units. You can have 1 ADU and a junior in-law unit. So what I tell people, technically every single family lot has the potential to be like a triplex because they all have their own kitchens and bathrooms, and they'll all have their own separate entrances. So that was very substantial for owners, but also for investors. The minimum lot size requirements have been dropped. So people may assume, I need this huge lot. I need this 6,000, 10,000 square foot lot to be able to be a candidate to build an in-law unit, which is not true. So they have removed that. Setbacks have also been changed. Some had over 5 feet of setback, so that has been removed. There's also the aspect that there can be less pushback from the city. So now the state said that it must allow units for a size up to 800 square foot. So that's also a pretty substantial aspect. The next thing is related to the state, and Governor Newsom wanted to create a process where a city can't just sit on an application indefinitely. And so cities have now 60 days to review a permit application. And if they fail to do so, it's automatically approved. So that will also accelerate and also make it just less cumbersome for individuals to even want to do this. So you can see these are very substantial changes. And so this year, because this all got passed last year, but they were in place this year. So these are very large changes just in terms of the concept of creating more housing all over the state of California. And you can see on the bottom, most of them were already there, but the aspect of no need for replacement parking, depending if you're converting a garage, and also no parking, extra parking needed for the in-law units if you're within a certain distance of a transit stop. So it could be a bus stop. Additional other things that were impacted, I would say the second line item is also very important. In the past, for most cities, in-law units required one of the units, either the primary home or the in-law unit, to be owner occupied. So for investors, it wasn't an option. And there was always concerns and questions. Well, if I wanted to move somewhere else in the future, how does that work? But because of the changes for the next 5, basically any in-law units that receive a permit over the next throughout the next period does not have to be owner occupied for up to the end of 2024. And I'm sure by that time they will likely reassess and determine what they want to do from there. A couple of other things, short-term rentals are still not allowed from an in-law unit perspective. So Airbnb is not allowed. This is meant for creating additional space for tenants. And the other aspect that was also added is now in-law units can also be built for multifamily zones. So I know several different investors or several different multifamily owners that may also be considering to add additional in-law units for their dwelling. So as you can see, these are pretty substantial, and that's what makes this space very interesting and very exciting. There's not just a lot more publicity, but as you can see, there's so many different things that were restrictions before that that have been alleviated, and we should continue to expect these types of trends moving forward. A couple of other things to add is there are new Title 24 requirements from an energy perspective. So any sort of detached units, you will have to install solar. My partner Kamal will talk a little bit about this momentarily. But that's not for all new construction. So for example, if you converted the existing space, if you converted either the garage or an existing dwelling to an in-law unit, you will not need solar. The other option that we didn't talk about, which is another option, is you can also build an existing or build an attached in-law unit. So it's still new construction, but you're sharing a wall from the new unit to your primary home. So these are some of the things that are also enforced as of this year. And this is happening not just for in-law units, but all new construction. So you'll see new construction all have solar in place. Kamal, are you there by chance?
Yes, I am. I just had to unmute myself.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you the host and you can kind of continue where we left off.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks so much. I'm the general contractor in the company, and most of the information that I'll share with you is construction related. We build a lot of ADUs, and that's where this information comes from. So basically, a lot of people ask us, where does most of the cost into the ADU go? What is it that's the most expensive item in an ADU? And we thought we would share with you. The screen just went away. Okay, I can share.
Yeah, go ahead and just share yours.
I can share mine, yeah. Are you able to see my slide?
Yes, we see it. And while Kamal was doing that, I was going to make sure everybody knows this is being recorded and we will be showing it later. We will make it available for people because there's a lot of great information.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jean. So in terms of where most of the cost of the ADU goes, you'll notice, oops, sorry. You'll notice the framing, the trusses, the subfloor. Those are the items where, almost 1/3 of the cost goes. Then for an ADU, we also have to do an excavation. We have to build the foundation. We also have to put back the soil that was removed. That's also a substantial portion of the cost. And then you have finishes, you have utility trenches. Until last year, we had 4 types of utilities going into ADUs. We had sewer, electric, gas, and water. From 1st of January 2020, regarding the Title 24 codes that Spenser talked about, there is no more gas allowed in ADUs. So now we have only 3 types of utilities: sewer, electric, and water. So the distance of the utility trench determines how much all that stuff will cost. So that's why if your ADU is closer to the home, the utility trenches are cheaper. If the ADU is farther from the home, they're more expensive. And so on and so forth. I've given you basically a breakdown of all the costs. Now, there are multiple ways to build an ADU. We'll go through each of these in a bit more detail in the next slide. I just wanted to describe what these are at a high level. You see ADUs being built with these 3 methods. The first one is conventional stick framing, where the framer comes in and they basically install each 2x4 or each 2x6. Those are the vertical pieces of wood you're seeing there, and that constitutes the frame, and the rest of the ADU gets built on that frame. Homes are built that way, apartments are built that way, ADUs are built that way. The second method is basically doing the frame off-site. As I mentioned in the previous slide, almost 1/3 of the cost of a home or an ADU is the framing. So if you can build the frame in a factory away from the Bay Area, not pay the crazy Bay Area wages, and then bring the frame on site in pieces, as you're seeing in the back of the truck, then we can build an ADU or an entire home fairly quickly just by assembling these panels rather than framing through the conventional means and sticking each 2x4 or each 2x6 in place. So basically it's a bunch of Lego blocks that come in and we assemble these. Just to give you an idea how much time you save, If you build an ADU with conventional stick framing, you could spend a couple months just building the frame of the ADU. With a framing package, once the frame arrives at the job site, it takes us about a day and a half or a couple days to put together an ADU that's about 800 square feet. And that constitutes the frame. And then we do rough electrical, rough plumbing, rough mechanical, which is HVAC, heating and cooling, and so on. But that's basically the bones of the ADU. The third method of building ADUs is to build everything off-site, like a prefab ADU, and then bring the entire prefab unit to the job site. There are pros and cons of each of these methods, which we'll cover in the next slide. Oops. So with conventional stick framing, the advantage is everybody knows that. That's how things have been happening. That's how people have been doing this. And you can also customize these to the nth degree at the job site. Beyond a certain level of customization, you get into trouble. We can talk about that. But you can customize a lot of these. The disadvantage of conventional stick framing is it's more expensive because you're paying Bay Area wages, and also it takes longer because you have to nail each piece of wood together. You have to cut the wood, you have to nail it, so all that stuff takes time. The second method I described, where you bring the package in a bunch of panels and then assemble the frame together, we're able to save 10 to 15% of the overall project cost by building these in a factory off-site. The other advantage is you need smaller crews for assembling an ADU rather than building the entire thing from scratch. So you save a lot of time. As I mentioned, instead of taking weeks or months, we're doing this in days. The disadvantage is not everyone understands this. And once people see the advantages, once people see that there's little or no cutting of wood at the job site, once people see the quality of the materials, they're sold on this concept. And by the way, the apartment builders have been building apartments this way. What we're doing is we're bringing this capability to the residential customer instead of the commercial customer, and basically allowing people to build ADUs in the same manner that the apartment builders have been operating. One disadvantage of the panelized approach is because the stuff is built in a factory, you're subject to factory schedule. There could be other orders ahead of you. These factories are very busy. Their job is to keep them running all the time. So you're subjected to your place in the queue. And if other people are ahead of you, you may have to wait for your order to get built. That's the only disadvantage. Now, we don't waste time there. We basically do the foundation, we do the utility connection while the ADU is being built in the factory. And then once it arrives, we start putting the framing package together. And from that point on, it's just like a conventional built ADU. And then the third method is prefab. It saves you time because everything comes together and it gets installed. Basically, in a week, everything is done. It's also built in a factory, so you also have a schedule you have to deal with in the factory. The biggest disadvantage of prefab is once it arrives, once it's put in place, there's very little changes you can do. There's very little customization you can do at that stage. That's a huge disadvantage. If you want to change a window or move a door or do something simple like that or move an outlet, it gets really expensive. With the other two approaches, you can keep making these changes until drywall gets in. So you can make changes until the last stage pretty much. The other disadvantage of prefab units is because the entire unit comes in, it has to be picked up by a crane and placed in somebody's backyard, or it has to be rolled into the backyard. If you don't have access to the backyard, if you don't have side access that's sufficient to get that ADU rolled in, then this wouldn't work. There are lots of customers who want the prefab unit, but just the act of getting it there makes it impossible. So that's the one big disadvantage with prefab units. Next, let's talk about planning your ADU. We'll discuss planning your ADU from different perspectives. Budget is an important one. So let's talk about what constitutes your budget. Your budget has three portions. You have to pay a designer or an architect to design your ADU. You have to pay the city for your building permits, and then you have to pay for the construction costs. Those are the key factors that constitute the overall budget for your ADU. And then from the construction perspective, as I mentioned in one of the previous slides, the foundations, the trenches, and the finishes. These are some of the key items as you price your ADU. One important factor is the smaller your ADU gets, the more expensive it becomes. People are used to comparing construction from a dollar per square foot perspective. They may have heard, well, you can build a home for, I don't know, pick a number, $250 to $300 a square foot. So they expect that an ADU will be built at the same price point, and that's completely wrong because you're comparing apples to oranges. The most expensive items in a home or in an ADU are the kitchen and the bathroom because of all the finishes, all the tiles, all the plumbing work that's involved. So in a home that has, say, 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom and 1 kitchen, the dollar per square foot cost is lower than an ADU, which has 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and 1 kitchen. So just the math doesn't work out right. Contact us for more details. We can describe this in a lot more detail for you. So what we recommend to people is, regardless of the size of the ADU, you'll have a bunch of fixed costs. You'll have a foundation, you'll have trenches, you'll have utility connections, you'll have the kitchen appliances, you'll have the instant water heater, you'll have air conditioning. All that stuff has to be paid for. And if you make your ADU bigger, the dollar per square foot number goes down. If you have an ADU that's 2 bedrooms instead of 1 bedroom, the dollar per square foot number drops. So our recommendation to people is make the biggest ADU that you can, and that way your dollar per square foot number is lower, and then find the most reliable general contractor that will build within your budget. That's also very important. You want to work with somebody that you can trust, who will not exceed your budget, who will not exceed your schedule, and build an ADU in the right fashion. So let's keep talking about construction costs. As I mentioned, I've given you some numbers. Let's say if you were building on the same footprint, on the same lot, you were building ADUs of different sizes. Let's say you were building a 400 square foot ADU, 600 square foot ADU, 800 square foot ADU, or 1,000 square foot ADU. And just to keep things equal, all of them have 1 bedroom and 1 bath. Based on that, you'll see that the bigger the ADU gets, the cheaper it gets on a dollar per square foot basis. That's the one key takeaway. The other key takeaway is if you look at the hard costs, the construction costs in the table I've given you, you'll see that when you go from a 400 square foot ADU to a 600 square foot ADU, for example, the difference in the dollar amounts is not that much. Or when you go from 600 to 800, it's not that much. Or 800 to 1,000, it's not that much. Because when you're increasing that square footage, you're basically increasing the size of the rooms. You still have that 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. You have the same utility trenches and so on. So basically, you're just paying for some extra drywall, some extra roofing, some extra flooring. But the expensive stuff like the bedroom, the bathroom, the trenches, all that is factored into the price. So that's why we keep saying that smaller ADUs are more expensive. The smaller you get, the more expensive it becomes. Let's talk about financing your project. A lot of people are building ADUs from savings. Some people are taking out a home equity loan, building an ADU with that. Also know the difference between home equity line of credit and home equity loan. If you don't know the difference, contact us, we'll give you more details. You can also get a construction loan to build an ADU. The guidelines are slightly more stringent. They want a bunch of cash injection in the project. They want to look at the value of the project. The qualification is a little harder, but construction loans are available. You can also borrow from private investors, what's called hard money lending, but they charge more interest rates, higher interest rates than conventional financing. You can also use what's called PACE financing. It's a state-sponsored program that allows you to qualify easily as long as you're making your mortgage payments on time. And basically, the PACE financing provides for a bunch of energy-related materials in your ADU. So things such as insulation, drywall, the roof, HVAC, and some appliances. These type of things are covered. And so basically 40 to 60% of your cost of the ADU can be paid by this loan, which is somewhat easy to get. And then there's some startups that are also being formed that are also marketing themselves as providing ADU related financing services. We don't have affiliations with these, but we've at least put their names here in case you want to contact them and explore what they provide. In terms of floor plans, we have almost now 80 floor plans for ADUs. We've built so many ADUs. Our plans range from 400 square foot to 1,200 square feet. We've built ADUs in these ranges. We also have an additional 300 floor plans that you can look at. So basically, each time we build an ADU, each time we see a floor plan, we add it to our inventory. What that helps you to do is, once you meet with us in our first meeting, we'll share some of these floor plans with you because we'll know what works in your lot, what's a suitable floor plan for you. So we get your imagination engaged very quickly, we get you going very quickly. And just by showing you some of these floor plans, we literally would save you months and months of trouble and months of exploration and trial and error. So that's the value of having these floor plans immediately available to you. And we also have a little bit of detail about what the purpose of the ADU is and what you can optimize it for. In the interest of time, I wouldn't go through each one of these. Let me just pick a couple of these. Let's say you wanted to rent your ADU. So you can start to explore if you have 1 bedroom or 2 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom versus 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. Which one would get you greater rent? How do you create privacy between the 2 bedrooms? How do you create privacy between the ADU and the primary dwelling? What will be the access to the ADU? How will your renters get there? Also, you don't want carpet in the ADU. You'll be changing it every few years if you have carpet. So why not put a more durable hardwood floor or engineered floor that allows you to have more durability in the ADU? You wouldn't be changing it so often. There's so many types of countertops available that are durable, that don't have stains. So why not pick something that's really durable so you don't have to change it? You may want to have separate utility meters so the renters can have their own utility connection and pay for some of the utilities directly. You can get electric and gas meters that can have a separate account. Of course, they can have their own cable and internet connection. If the ADU has a separate address, which the city would allow you to have. So that basically allows you to tweak your rental ADU from that perspective. Now, if you're, let's say, if you're building that ADU to live in yourself, if you want to downsize from the bigger home you're in to the ADU, then you can tweak the ADU a little bit more to basically to support your lifestyle you want in the ADU. What type of finishes would you want? We have customers that want us to first build the ADU, then they'll move into the ADU. Their kids have left their home, their kids are in college or are working now, so they want to rent out the primary home. So then these type of ADU customers of ours will tweak the ADU in a certain way to meet their lifestyle needs, to meet their style needs, and things like that. They may want a more luxury ADU, for example. So all that stuff comes into play. We're happy to discuss these options with you as you engage with us. In terms of additional considerations, do you need to hire an architect? Do you need to hire a soils engineer, a civil engineer, a structural engineer, a Title 24 processor? You know, all these questions may come to you. How would you get a permit with the city? How do you bring utilities to the ADU? We do all that, you know, day in and day out. This is our bread and butter. We know answers to all these questions. So as you start to explore these things, contact us and we'll help you get answers to all these questions. In terms of what the timeline looks like, it may take you 2 months working with a designer or an architect from the time they engage with you to come up with a floor plan of the ADU. That's where our floor plans come in. By showing you the floor plans in our first meeting, we can shorten that time very, very dramatically. We can get the designs done for you very quickly. We can get custom designs done for you very quickly. We can have a package ready for submission for permits very quickly. And then once you submit that package, it takes you about 2 months to get permits based on the new state laws. And then once you get the permit, it takes us about 4 months to 5 months of construction time, depending on the complexities of your ADU and how much we have to work from a site perspective. Do we have to prepare the site? Do we have to level the ground? All that good stuff. So say 4 or 5 months of construction time. Working with the planning and building departments, some of these are old now because of the recent coronavirus situation. You cannot go into city departments in person anymore. So fortunately, a lot of city departments are now accepting applications online and over email. So that's great. So some of this stuff has changed now, just in the most recent couple of days. So more important thing is don't ask for exceptions. Understand what your city rules are. The rules are pretty black and white. The city doesn't like you to have exceptions. It only delays your project. That's the most important thing I can tell you on this slide. Understand what fees you have to pay, understand at what stage you have to pay all those fees. That way you have the right expectations and you can have the budget lined up to do that. In the interest of time, I'll skip a couple of these slides that describe our most recent projects. We build entire homes, we build entire ADUs, we built ADUs in a whole bunch of cities, and we also have a bunch of ADUs that are getting ready for permits. We're building a few ADUs at this time, we're building homes at this time, and then we are designing a bunch of ADUs. As they get permitted, we'll start building them. These are pictures of some of our ADU projects. In the interest of time, again, you'll have a recording of this presentation. So I'll skip that. You can pause the recording and look at these in more detail. These are detached ADUs mainly. Detached ADUs are a bit more complicated, but you see we build a lot of them. It's not a problem. On the right-hand side, you're seeing some of the utility connections. You're seeing a gas connection, an electric connection, and a low voltage cable connection in this one. You're seeing things being assembled. So to get to this framing stage that you see in the middle of the slide, usually it takes us 2 days to assemble everything, and that's what you see in 2 days after the frame is built. That's the ADU project. This is a 1,000 square foot ADU, 2-bedroom and 2-bathroom that we're building in Fremont. Our ADU finishes are really nice. Basically, the same people who are building homes for us that are $3 million and higher, I get the same people, same workers to do the finishes in our ADUs. So you see things such as nice backsplashes, nice countertops, nice cabinets, nice shower doors, nice doors. So a lot of people tell us that, oh, wow, this ADU looks prettier than my home. Because our finishes are so nice, we do a whole bunch of these things. These are all customized to your needs, and we'll help you pick the materials and pick from places where you'll save money. And if you like more ideas, just contact us and we'll share more details with you. So why work with us? That's always an important question. There are tons of contractors out there, tons of companies building ADUs. Well, why work with us? Some of the key reasons are we reduce your risk at every stage. Both Spenser and I have a corporate background. We have run multi-billion-dollar projects for our companies. We know how to get things done. We know how to reduce our operating costs. We know how to make things happen. So we bring that vigor and we bring that energy to the ADU space and we make it happen. We make sure that everyone you work with, including us, including all the engineers, including the architects and designers, including the Title 24 processes we've worked with before. So that way it further reduces your risk. You're not working with a team that's unknown. This is our team. We know everybody and we basically make it happen. We make sure that there are no loose ends, and we've converted all this into a process. So we keep following the process, and that brings a whole bunch of reliability to your project. We also have very competitive pricing. We only ask for one small deposit and we start building at that point. We have lots of ways we save you money and we save you time. We can discuss all that with you in greater detail when we meet. And then one quick update from a COVID perspective, from a coronavirus perspective. The shelter in place got extended recently. So the city departments now are prioritizing low-income housing rather than apartment complexes, homes or ADUs. And they've basically put a temporary halt to construction, both commercial construction and residential construction. What we can still do is do a bunch of design work, get our structural engineer working, get our Title 24 processing done. So we can basically still produce documents for you for city submission. And as soon as the cities start taking the applications again for permits, we can get you working there. And then hopefully 2 months from that point on, we can start building for you. So in terms of next steps, we'll be more than happy to do a feasibility assessment for your project, visit your job site, look at your setbacks, take some measurements. We can share with you some of our ADU designs, our ADU floor plans. Those are the things that save you a lot of time right away. And we can get started with your project right away by engaging a designer or an architect and basically build an ADU that you want and get you the permits. As we say, we are a one-stop ADU shop, so we can do all of that. In addition to all of these, you're always welcome to tour one of our ADUs under construction, engage with Spenser or myself, and we'll be more than happy to assist you with that. If you have any questions, we'll be more than happy to answer questions if any time remains.
So Kamal, we have a few, yeah.
Yeah, we do, but I think it's okay if we go a little bit, and then I just have a few announcements after that, but I'd love to just go through the questions, and if people can bear with us to keep it going. Spenser, do you want to just tell him?
Yeah, so Kamal, when we enter this, so Serena asked, if I'm doing a garage conversion where I'm still going to keep one or two of the existing garage walls, can I still use prefab construction?
No, prefab usually means everything comes in one unit, and it doesn't work very well for garage conversions, because in a garage conversion, basically you have to build everything inside the garage.
Yeah, prefabs are good, a good option, and kind of the only option if it's for a detached unit. Yeah, that's how they design it too. Most of them are configured in certain ways, so you have a very limited options as well. So that's something just to be aware of from a prefab perspective. So Philip asked, did you say gas is not allowed in ADUs anymore?
Yes, with the new Title 24 rules, in apartment complexes, single family homes or ADUs, you can no longer have a gas connection.
Cool. And Serena, do you guys charge costs if we change construction plans?
Do we charge cost if you change construction plans? I want to understand that question better. You change construction plans when?
Yeah, so the question is when, yeah. I mean, it's always, you know, the kind of the caveat is always best to do it in the very beginning of the design side of it, right? Of course, if you're changing everything, then it just depends on what you can even change as well down the process, because you can't just go down the process, get permits, get the drawings, permits, and then we begin construction, and now you have a different idea of additional windows or different layouts. That's not how it works. I mean, you can, but go ahead.
Yeah, let me tell you a bit more. You know, you've gotten the city engaged, you've gotten permits, you've paid them a lot of money to approve your construction and give you a permit, and now you start to change things once construction starts. You know, you pay us for reasonable changes, that's fine, but the more important thing is the city may get very upset. So you don't want to do that, and it may delay your project. So don't start changing after you've gotten your permits. Some changes are reasonable. The city doesn't care if you change a bathtub into a shower or a shower into a bathtub, but bigger changes like changing the sizes of windows and all that, adding or subtracting doors, those type of things, removing load-bearing walls, that's the type of stuff that gets you into trouble with the city.
And then Lon Hardman asks, are you doing in-law units or ADUs in basements of multifamily units in San Francisco?
We try to stay away from San Francisco. It's hard to work in San Francisco. It's hard to get there. It's hard to find parking. Unless we get big projects, we try to stay away from San Francisco.
Okay, Gene, we'll kick it back to you if there's no other questions. You might be muted if you're trying to say something, by the way. Gene, you're probably muted.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, and do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, first of all, I wanted to just say thank you to Spenser and Kamal, because they've done these ADU seminars for us in the past, and it's great. They do great work, and just a great job in terms of the seminar itself. And there are a lot of changes that have been made just this year. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Just very quickly, some announcements. So we did have a shredding party scheduled for this Saturday, and that has been canceled as the schools are closed and we're in the shelter in place. So just to make sure people are aware, we have some upcoming seminars. Right now, we're still scheduling it as a seminar, but we may go webinar if needed. We are not going to have, it is going to be on remodeling tips and trends. We're not going to be having these people on it, but just a little marketing there. And then opportunities through 1031 exchanges in June. We are going to be posting this webinar as well as our other ones, and you can see on here, there's Kamal and Spenser for the one that we did last year. So if you wanted to go back through those, there's I think it's mostly this information, but a lot more updated this time anyway. But Kamal did have a little more time to go into details. So please be sure to check that out. And then we will have some other upcoming seminars and topics, real estate and taxes, estate planning, retirement relocation strategies, and the propositions that will be coming on the ballot related to real estate. I'm gonna take this down. So please make sure that you're on, finally, just please make sure you're on our email list. Most likely you are if you signed up for this webinar, but if not, just do a double check. We are doing a Perisson update, usually a monthly email. Lately, due to the coronavirus and things changing so day by day, we are doing a weekly email update, and we also send out information. This is what our seminars usually look like on the bottom left, and then the right is what our shredding parties usually look like. So if you're on our email list, you will get that information as well. So I believe, so that's it for today. If we don't have any other questions, thank you so much to everyone for joining us. And I hope that this was, get out of this, stop sharing. So thank you to everyone for joining us, and I hope that you'll be able to join us for future ones. If you are not on our email list, then I think there's a way for me to find you on Zoom, but we'll figure it out. Otherwise, I will have it on, if you go to YouTube and look up Perisson Real Estate, then you'll get to our YouTube channel, and I'll have a link for that as well on how you can find out, how you can sign up for that list. So thank you so much again, Kamal, Spenser, and everyone. Have a good evening. I hope you stay safe and healthy, and please let us know if we can help with anything. Bye-bye.
Great, thank you.
You guys.
Opportunity.
Bye.